hour. I'd like to call to order the August 28th, 2014 meeting of the Oklahoma City Airport Trust. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the July 24th, 2014 Oklahoma City Airport Trust meeting. What are the trustees' desires?
Approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next is a presentation from the director dealing with the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Each year in May, when the Airport Trust passes and approves the annual budget for the upcoming year, we always submit a 5-year capital improvement program. However, today I'd like to take a look at that program a little more specifically from a couple of different aspects, talk about some projects that are underway and some other projects going forward. So if you'll notice, first we look at the capital plan for the next 5 years, and you can see that we're looking at a little over almost $313 million over the next 5 years of capital projects for all three of the city's airports. The first 2 years are fairly extensive, and that's mainly because we have several large projects which are currently underway, and all of them are actually multi-year. We also look at projects by location, and you can see, and obviously, Will Rogers World Airport has the lion's share of the capital projects that we're projecting in the next 5 years. But I do like to carve out Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, which is an increasing line of business for us. We'll be spending almost a little over $65 million. They continue to increase the number of projects which are planned and projected. And actually, the Airports Department has 4 people that are just dedicated to the Mike Monroney operation. We also look at projects by type. This is interesting, I think, because when you look at all of the different areas that we have capital projects in, we break them down into these major areas. Starting at the top, we have 4% of our projects are going to be going towards equipment. These are things like our aircraft rescue and firefighting trucks, our snow and ice field maintenance equipment, and parking shuttles. Moving to the right or clockwise, our terminal projects will be approximately 30% of the budget. And this is mainly due to the expansion project that we have planned, and also a little bit for the checked baggage system that we're underway with now. 11% of our projects are dedicated to our parking facilities, a major line of business for us. That will either be in the form of possibly a new parking garage or a surface lot. We're evaluating that over periodically. Also building components, lots of roofs and structural and exterior responsibilities that the lessor, the trust, has on our OCAT-owned buildings. Also airfield is 15% of our capital will be done on these types of projects. This is runway and taxiway rehabilitation, airfield lighting and airfield signage. And then finally, infrastructure. The airport has a significant amount of infrastructure that it maintains and constructs new, such as roads and water and wastewater utilities. We also look at projects by funding source, and again, starting at the top of the pie, the AIP grants. Will Rogers World Airport gets about $4.5 million per year from the FAA because of our boarding passenger numbers. Our general aviation airports customarily compete with other airports in the state and actually nationally based on the type of project that is, and we receive money from the FAA and the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission for those airports. Mike Monroney puts about $12 million a year into an escrow account that the trust maintains for maintenance and capital projects. And then as far as revenue bonds, we're anticipating probably about 20% of our funding in the form of PFC, or the passenger facility charges. This is related to previous terminal renovations, the future terminal renovation that we're going to be planning, as well as the baggage project we're underway with. And on the CFC, the customer facility charge is related to funding construction for the new consolidated rental car facility and also purchasing the buses that are being built right now. We have a small percentage from TSA funding source on the baggage project we're underway with, and then a significant amount, 39% of our projects will be funded by airport operations. Looking at some major and new projects which will be ongoing for the next 5 years, the terminal expansion is a big one that we're excited about. Right now, the preliminary budget for that is a little over $77 million. Various airfield improvements for almost $31 million. And then the parking garages in our 5-year forecast. I mentioned that we're looking at that periodically to see if we need to ever pull the trigger on that, but we're watching that one closely. These other projects, the rental car facility, the realignment of Portland Avenue, terminal generator, our checked baggage inspection system, and the signage replacement project, which you're going to hear a little bit later about this morning, all of these are underway at this time. We also have a significant amount of other projects, a little over $35 million, A large part of this, about $17 million, is related to other buildings and buildings components, various equipment, $7.5 million, various infrastructure, $7 million, and then a lot of incidental projects. Looking at some of the projects for Will Rogers World Airport, this is an overhead view of the airfield, and what we're planning in the next 5 years is some rehabilitation or reconstruction of our main runway, and you see that in the green line. That's our primary instrument runway, runway 35 right and 17 left. The red lines represent taxiways. The one to the right of the green line is Taxiway H, or Taxiway Hotel. We've done some rehabilitation work on that already, but we still are going to be working on the ends in the next year or so. And then the other lines represent Taxiway G and C, which are also Taxiway Charlie and Golf, respectively. Those are going to be rehabilitated and reconstructed, going from asphalt to concrete. There's significant airfield lighting in those as well. This next picture you've seen before. This is the concept for the consolidated rental car facility. Just to remember that this is a 40-acre site. It's under construction, began last December, and this is where we're trying to meet the needs of the rental car industry and about 17 to 20% of the passengers at Will Rogers that have a propensity to want to rent a car. This will be a fleet storage area which will exceed the 15-year planning horizon. We'll have about 900 ready return spaces. We only have 400 today. And it'll meet the needs of the industry. It'll provide administrative space, maintenance, wash bays, and fueling facilities for the 9 rental car companies that will be operating in this facility. You see the rendering on the top left of what this facility is going to look like, we hope, once it's constructed. And then at the bottom right, you see the progress that's being made to date. That project is still scheduled to be complete towards the end of summer of 2015. We have a couple of updated pictures on the new baggage project. I showed you this project in the budget presentation in May, but to the top left you can see some of the equipment that's being installed, and about a third of the system, the old system that was put in after 9/11, has now been demolished, and this new system is being put in. You can see what the whole matrix looks like in that picture to the right of the screen. We're excited about this project. It is going to be the first TSA standard baggage system that we've had at Will Rogers. It'll enhance screening and enhance security of the passenger bags that are checked at the ticket counter. We also have the realignment of Portland Avenue. This is related to the 1,000 acres of mixed-use development for aviation and non-aeronautical development, including some retail, hopefully, that we're proposing over the next 20 to 30-year horizon. The first step of this is to implement the project to realign Portland Avenue, and the south part of that project is underway. It will be realigned from southwest to 104th Street, north to 54th Street, and the current project takes the project improvements up to southwest 74th Street. There will be connectors between the new Portland and Interstate 44, and this will be the main spine road for that development. The goal of this project is to do other improvements later on in our capital program so that we can be as development ready as possible. Also, I mentioned the 5-story parking garage, and naturally we would put it just north of our existing garages, and again, that's a project that we are looking at very closely. Moving to the terminal expansion, we're underway with an A&E solicitation process so that we can go forward with a design of a 3-bay expansion to our central terminal, followed by an ultimate 9-gate expansion. Our first phase will be to do the extension to the central terminal, as well as building the breezeway and 3 gates. This is all related to increasing our gate capacity at Will Rogers, also to improve functionality in the airport with various airport functions such as police, operations, relocate some critical functions such as the military welcome center and other areas, and also mainly to improve passenger processing and work towards a central consolidated security checkpoint. We also have some ongoing and new projects at Wiley Post Airport. You can see almost $17 million. One of those big projects is to lengthen and widen the alternate runway 17 right, 35 left, various other airfield improvements, perimeter fencing, and construct a new maintenance facility that was original from 1960s. When you look at the alternate runway, we currently have an alternate runway to our main runway, which is 5,000 feet long, which is a jet-capable runway, and it's 75 foot wide. But our plans are to, hopefully, to work with the FAA to increase the capacity of that runway with the type of aircraft that are using Wiley Post. It's very large corporate jet aircraft today. We really need to extend it 1,000 feet and widen that from 75 to 100 feet to make it from a Category B to a Category C runway. There are times when the main runway does go out of service, construction, maintenance, whatever. We also have some other projects at Wiley Post. Actually, over the next 5 years, the FAA and the Aeronautics Commission, and with trust funds, are actually going to do a complete overhaul of the airfield at Wiley Post, and so there's another main runway, our main runway there you see in red, as well as a yellow taxiway, which is an alternate parallel taxiway to taxiway Alpha. We have a few ongoing and new projects at Clarence E. Page Airport, a little over $4 million. And Karen, if you'll go to the next slide, we'll show the Mid-Continent FBO apron that actually we have that it will be legacy by the time this trust is over. And we also have another taxiway improvement on the right side of the page, taxiway Alpha, with some connectors. We'll also be installing new airfield lighting. The Mike Monroney Aeronautical Campus, this is an overview. It's a 1,000-acre campus. It's the largest lessee that the trust has. We maintain 31 buildings for Mike Monroney, 2.6 million square foot of rooftop, 70 acres of parking lots, as well as a medium gas pressure and electrical distribution grid for the entire campus. Again, $65 million over the next 5 years. And here you can see some of the major categories that Mike Monroney has requested and planned projects for. And that's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But that's a quick look at our 5-year capital program. It changes all the time, but we're excited about it. Things are going well.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the trustees?
As it relates to the baggage handling system, do we anticipate that one of the benefits will be a reduction in the waiting time between deplaning and being able to pick up your luggage? Does that
The carousel that is being built in the new baggage system is basically for the inbound, or I should say the outbound bags. The inbound bags that are going to be coming from the aircraft by the carriers that are put on the bag claim system, a portion of that belt system will be replaced, but that service is mainly, I would say it's based on the availability of the airline and its personnel and the number of flights as to how quickly the passengers get their bags.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, trustees. Moving along, director's report.
I want to report a really good July. We had 6.7% increase in boarding passengers compared to July of last year, and we're 3% ahead this calendar year over last calendar year. So we had a very busy summer. From the activity that I saw in August, it looks like it's going to be robust as well, so we're very excited about that. The second part of my presentation today is I would like to ask Joe Labazon to come forward. The airport, as you know, has been involved in an airport signage and wayfinding project for some time, and we have met with Labazon and with the Lochner team to do a complete overhaul of the airport signage. We're talking roadways in and out, the terminal building, pedestrian tunnel, and our parking garages. We feel like it's badly needed, and Mr. Labazon's firm is an expert in this with airports across the country. He's here to give us a presentation on where we are today. We want to show the trust what we've accomplished at this point with regard to nomenclature, methodology, how the signs are going to look, a various representation of those, and we need to make sure you're good with that so we can go forward and continue our steps towards design and bidding documents to get on with the project. Mr. Labazon.
Great. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I'll try and look at this screen and understand you have them as well, so if it gets a little awkward in between, it's kind of me doing both at one time. The agenda, we'll basically talk about some of the wayfinding that goes into it. It's a very soft science and a very subjective science, but there certainly are some things we can do for wayfinding to ensure that a majority of the people in the airport or any facility navigate it well. We're going to show you some of the inspiration and graphic elements. One of the goals was to design a sign system that would be integrated with the architecture. So trying to make something work that's not haphazard and something that wasn't planned. So we'll show you those type of things. We'll go through design for the roadway signage, the terminal, and the parking signage. Last of all, we'll show you conceptual wayfinding examples in place, and we can move from there. I may add that there's really just two pieces to what we do. One is the wayfinding piece, the other is the signage design, and they're really two different functions. The first step is always wayfinding designs, which we've done now, and we're going through some of the signage. So, what is a voice of an airport? A lot of time we tell our clients if there's one thing that represents your facility, it's your signage. Yes, architecture can be a part of the reflection. Yes, the finishes can be part of it. But the wayfinding and the signage is really what talks to your customers and which talks to the passengers and visitors. So it's important that that voice reflect some of the goals and missions of the airport itself. In this case, we talk about passive-aggressive, positive, negative language. Negative would be, if you're pulling up to a curbside and there's a 10-foot sign that says no parking here, when a simple parking sign would be a little more benign and not quite so in your face. The same thing happens with wayfinding. Keep it a positive tone and keep it active and passive to navigate through the facility. Wayfinding consistency. It's very important that the wayfinding and the signage be consistent throughout the entire process. The goal that we took with the airport was we didn't look at it as a parking garage, as a roadway, as a terminal. It's really all of it. It's your journey from home to the parking facility, the shuttle dropping you off all the way to the gate. So we tend to look beyond what the architecture is and what the engineering is, because the journey really crosses all of those facilities. Kit of parts. We designed what we think is a good kit of parts. We've put a toolbox together of sign types that the airport will have from years to come. So in the archives, and not in the archives, but the toolbox that we have, there'll be a number of directional signs. Some could be hung, some could be flagged down, and there'll be identification signs, there'll be informational signs. All of it will be in the box, so you might use half of them, but they're there in the future if you need to do something new. We came up with some sign family concepts. You'll hear the sign family word used quite a bit. It's whatever the graphic elements are in the palette that we're having those messages, that it's a family of signs that all talk to each other. So if we look here, we had some of the words that we looked with to try and come up with a sign family that we thought flattered the airport. You need to be architecturally integrated. You have a beautiful facility. I have to say I've done 18 international airports around the United States and around the world, and it's a beautiful facility. You're very fortunate to have such a nice facility. So we thought the signs needed to reflect that. They needed to be crisp, simple, modern, yet classic. Well, some of the attributes we think that we can do are establish a subtle, abstract connection to the passengers from their destination. In other words, we're sending you through the wayfinding piece of it, we're training you, we're acclimating you to what the wayfinding is for the airport. In the case of an arriving passenger, the first thing they should see or will see when they get off the plane in the jetway is a sign directing baggage claim, ground transportation. The color, the font, letter, the style, that needs to all be the same to work properly. We think it's important that there's a sense of arrival. You do have an architecturally striking building, and the wayfinding should complement that sense of arrival. You know you're there. You're not in Tulsa. Nothing wrong with Tulsa if they're there. But you're not in some other airport, San Antonio. You're actually in Oklahoma City. The sense of arrival really helps passengers navigate. And I may add that the calmer the passenger is who's navigating, the more they tend to use other facilities, shopping, services, those type of things. It needs to be implemented through all of it. It needs to be integrated with the right amount of contrast, visibility, and wayfinding flow. You have a lot of different light conditions in the terminal, so how is that addressed in signage? How does it work properly? It's probably, in fact, it's impossible to notice the colors here. We went through a significant color exercise at the airport so that the signs were integrated. What you're not seeing is the one on the left is kind of a charcoal blue. The one on the right is kind of a warm reddish family. We think they complement the architecture quite well, and they're also really distinctive enough that people will know that's a sign color that works with it. So we go to font. Font is a really important part of what we do. In my age, and probably most of us, we grew up with the proliferation of signs, advertising, magazines, books. Throughout the history of mankind, letter styles were designed for print, not for signs. They were designed for print. Clearview is the first font, I should say second, there was one in Germany called Frutiger. But Clearview is the first font that the Department of Transportation of the United States did funding on to see what's the best sign that we could design for a sign, not necessarily for print. We've opted to choose Clearview for your airport. It's very clean. It's very distinctive. It was designed specifically for signs. There are different parts of the font that help us. In other words, there's thicknesses, there's sizes, there's different things we can do so for the outside is different from the inside. You'll notice when we look at roadway signs that the spacing, it's called kerning, the spacing before the letters opens up more than if it was in the terminal because it's easier to read from the distance. So we're using Clearview. We're using a very modern transit-style arrows that are very distinctive and consistent. You'll notice that, unfortunately you can't see this, but if you follow the arrows left to right, you'll notice there's no looping arrows. There's no arrow saying go backwards, go forward. They're all straight angles so that not to confuse people, and it needs to be kept in that particular manner. Symbols, universal symbols. A lot of people ask us to use the international symbols at airports. and there is no such thing. There is no such thing as an international symbol unless the UN's taken it up recently. There are universally accepted symbols. We are using what the Department of Transportation uses and is common for most states, municipalities, and highways and airports across the country. You'll notice from left to right there's a symbol for an airport, a plane taking off, landing, rental car parking. Cell phone lot has become a new phenomenon at airports, so that could actually change that symbol because it's such a new thing. But we're using these. The big advantage to a symbol is it enables people who English isn't their native language to navigate the airport in a very consistent way. So if you had the word baggage claim and you had a baggage, I'm not showing it there, but you had a bag next to it, you're learning that that's what that means. You don't have to speak English or read English to notice a suitcase and notice a word next to it. It really enables us not to add a lot of languages to the signs, and symbols really lean on it to make it happen. You can always add language to signs, but I will say that absolutely it's never needed for wayfinding. It's needed for cultural sensitivity. So simple, clear is always the best. The sign concepts for the families, these are a little small, but you'll notice on the left-hand side, top left, roadway standards. You're probably wondering what is this feature across the top of the sign. When we get into the terminal, you'll see what that feature is. So we provided any combination of lanes that they could possibly use, road signs on the bottom side, right side, anything that would, any shape that would have, this is what would fall into it and go in that manner. To take that to the inside, on the top left you'll notice we have hanging signs to the right, freestanding sign, to the left a flag sign. All these conditions have to be addressed and all the kit parts will be there, so there's a sign for that application. I may add in the middle there, you'll see a women's room, and to the right an elevator and then a directory. Of course, the goal is to be ADA compliant with all of these things as well. Further on, for additional signs in the family, you'll see some signs in the parking garage, top left, free surface lots on a light pole, other various ways. All of these signs are designed to be consistent with the font of all that's going on at the airport. The right-hand side, you'll see the elevator vestibules for the parking garages. Those, almost every airport you go to, and if you survey your passengers, one of the number one things that come up is, I can't find my car. I don't remember where my car was. I can't find the elevator. I can't find the terminal. We tend to treat these elevator vestibules very colorful, very big, very in-your-face graphics because that's what people remember and that's what works. So you're seeing treatments on glass and walls there. You'll see different color options. I know the audience can't see them, but there's a red and a blue option there. So if we look from examples of where we're at with the signs, what happens if we're on the road and what happens with the signs if we implement them? I didn't do that. Pardon me? I could recite some poetry, but I'm sure you wouldn't want to hear it. Let me talk as he continued to do that. What we're going to show is a number of examples as we go through. We've actually taken Photoshop and created simulations. So we can simulate, there we go. You can simulate a diver and what the experiences with the signs were and what they'll look like. Just waiting to hook up. I'm glad I'm not the only one that has computer problems. So what you'll see here is someone driving in a car, getting to the terminal, parking in the car, and working their way into the terminal. This won't open?
While he's doing that, why don't you tell us some other airport projects you've worked on in recent years that we find interesting?
Not far from here, San Antonio Airport, the new terminal, as well as their roadways. We're doing both airports at Houston, actually all three airports in Houston for HAS. Terminal 5 in L.A., Miami, Atlanta, Detroit, Boston, Dubai.
But how about some big airports? Just kidding.
You know, sometimes the smaller airports are actually the tougher ones to do because there hasn't been so much to handle the volume and infrastructure. It's not treated as well. The IT person to the rescue. I'm getting ready to sweat pretty heavy here. I'm sorry for this. The questions while we're doing this, I mean, I'm not a good dancer, so.
No, I might say that Yeah, we're fortunate we're origination and destination airport, so a lot of our passengers, know their way around Will Rogers really well. But as the city continues to grow and we try to get more national exposure and international exposure, I think it's going to be very important that we have a good signage project. The other thing I will say, it was actually a little bit of fun, although painful, to come up with the color scheme, because we certainly had lots of debate on the right colors, and they really did a good job, I think, of trying to match the architectural elements and the different colors, particularly in the native stone that we have in the airport. That was, I think not confusing, but it was kind of fun to try to match that and still be able to have the signs delineate and to be able to stand out so that people can easily see and recognize them.
Yeah, there was a big exercise before all this we've done. If we were to show you all the slides, there were probably hundreds of what we went through for wayfinding and everything else. And I may add to what Mark said, is our goal is to design something that works for you for 90 to 95% of the people. And why I always tell our clients this is there's a number of people that are never going to get it. Unfortunately, Americans can be a little lazy. They don't want to look at the signs. They want someone to tell them where to go. The worst thing that we think can happen is when you design signs for the 5% who don't get it anyway, because you're layering and cluttering and you're putting a lot of things up there. We almost have to look at, we're going to lose some people, and that's what information booths and volunteers and people talking are for. Let's get most of the people where they need to go, because if you have 100 people walking through a hallway and 8 don't get it, those 8 are the ones that start the bottleneck, and it just cascades, dominoes going down the line.
I find it interesting you did not select crimson as the color.
Well, let me tell you
that, don't you, Kurt?
Let me tell you.
They could not really go with crimson or orange. It would have been difficult.
It is the time of year when I have staff meetings that the left side of my conference table is orange and the right is crimson, and it stays that way through January.
Just waiting for basketball season to start so we can all be unified.
We're sensitive to that. Friday night is, I live in Colorado, is CU and CSU, so that tends to be very...
Well, I'll just comment. When we travel, we typically go through several airports on a trip. Yesterday I was in Dallas and San Antonio, and if I'm on a flight, I'm probably sleeping. So, you wake up and you're in a new world, and you don't know where stuff is, and so signage is critical because you're dealing with people that probably are unfamiliar.
It is. We've done a lot of surveys with people, and for the arriving passenger, the two things they want to know, what's number one is usually the restroom. So where are you signing for the restrooms? The second thing is where does the parking, where's the ground transportation? And there's a sense of urgency with it. We often tell municipalities where we do trailblazing to airports that unlike a sports facility or unlike a concert hall, unlike a museum, there's urgency with travel. You can't be late. And there's that urgency that says, my kids, if we're traveling somewhere, we have to be there 2 hours early. We're afraid of this, we're afraid of that. So,
are we ready?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Joe, continue. Sorry for the delay.
I'll slow it to click, okay. So you'll see the execution on the roadway. In fact, I think we can go back and show what it looks like before. There's really nothing at this particular junction of the road, and it's a good opportunity to start adding the wayfinding and the queuing. This is what's existing now. All the colorful things will go away. All these messages up and above, we don't need to do, everything doesn't need to be on an overhead sign. What you're not seeing here is part of the wayfinding approach is a hierarchy of signage. What's the most important? Let's put information that's not critical in the lane to the right side of the road. If we continue through, we clean that up quite a bit. I can talk a little bit about this feature on the top. When we get into the terminal, again, you'll see more. To help make it distinctive and help give it a brand, that's what that function is doing there on the road. As we approach the garage, what was there, what it changes to. There's an option here, and I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but for a dynamic sign if you wanted to do some further guidance or those things, or other parking products. Taking the escalators down to the tunnel. We had a lot of fun with this sign. We think we can make it a little better. And you'll notice the symbol of the airplane next to the terminal. And you'll notice that that's the only shape you'll ever see that do. The plane's not going to turn to the left or right for turns. That symbol, the standard, is to keep it clear and to keep it consistent through the whole facility. We're at ticketing now. Looking down the concourse. You'll notice down here in the center a freestanding sign. I'll zoom in on this a little more as we get closer. We gave two options to the airport. One, hanging the sign, which logistically is not easy to do. You've got vast ceiling space. We are proposing that the signs be illuminated and that they be sustainable. So in other words, it would be LED, low voltage illumination versus more traditional illumination. We think the freestanding unit certainly lends itself to that application everywhere. We're not having to mess with what's on the roof. Coming off the airplane, we just said now what your passengers see when they see now is nothing until you get to the hallway and look left or right. Top right-hand corner is a baggage claim sign with ground transportation. Those of you in the audience can see this, but there's a freestanding sign in the middle telling how, what, when, and why. I may add for the wayfinding, one of the most critical elements for any wayfinding system is the placement. I mean, it's like retail. If placement is the key at decision points, you have to tell people which way to go. To pull them in a direction or shove them in another direction when the decision is right there is difficult. And I think you could attest to that for the exit out of the terminal now. You've responded for 911. The security vestibule is much bigger. The exit out of it is toned down, because the sign there really isn't in the exact spot it needs to be. So sign's in the right place. Looking down the terminal, you can see the freestanding option here again. Gates, same type of things. And I may add, we were recommending color for not color, light, because your conditions change. For 7 months out of the year, early in the morning and late in the afternoon, it's dark. It's darker. In the bright day, everything's washed out with bright light coming through here. So illuminating them really tends to help the passengers see it. There's some clutter things. There's a big temptation at airports to use logos, those type of things for car rentals companies. Their branded walls are pretty big back here, and if someone's here from the car rental people, please don't throw it. And this kind of goes away now shortly anyway, but all these colors and logos and things just tend to add a lot of visual clutter. Clean and simple seems to work best. Curbsides. This is a difficult sign for you to see because it's a difficult place to sign for. This southwest sign is actually at a very big angle that goes kind of behind the signs and through the columns, so that from a vehicle you can read it clearly. The columns don't block it. Creating that in a rendering in a Photoshop rendering is a little more difficult. We had to be in plain, and I'm sure you can ask the airport in the future what those look like and how they'll look. I mentioned light conditions. You can see what's very bright here. Any sign that's there now, you couldn't see it, so we're proposing one here and that the sign be illuminated. Curbsides, same type of signs. Parking, we just talked about. That's what the vestibule looks like now. We think color on all of the glass and a number helps. What we propose to do these type of things is the film. You can get digital film and color film to put on the second surface of the glass, so that it actually lights, the ambient light in it creates a little beacon for you to get to as you're looking for the terminal or getting from your car. Again, all the signs are the same. These are designed very similar to what you see in the terminal, the roadway, every place else. And I jumped ahead with the one in the terminal. That element that you're seeing on top of the sign, the branding element, comes from the beams in the terminal. I kind of glossed over it, but I think that explains why we're adding them to the roadway signs, the parking signs, and all the other ones as well. So we're updating the wayfinding plan now. The standards and guidelines for the sign that you've seen, we're creating documents that are detailed with size, materials, color, all those type of things, and you'll have what we need. Mark, is there anything else I should talk about?
No, thanks. I can tell you the staff likes it. We've worked very hard to come up with a central theme that can be used throughout the airport. I think y'all did a very good job, and we'd like to hear your comments. If you guys like it, we'd like to press forward and move on.
My comment is I like it a lot. My question is on the parking garages, the elevator vestibules, is that film on the glass on the outside of the vestibule?
Inside. It could be either, but we're recommending on the inside.
My question is does it block visibility into that area?
It would be translucent, not transparent.
Okay.
So it would glow. So if a person was standing behind it, you would see the outline of a shape.
So it wouldn't be a security risk for...
There's also other gradation ways to do it. I mean, we can go on the outside surface, which would be called the first, and use the same thing they use on buses. You'll notice there's that bus wrap where you can see in the windows and out.
Yeah.
There's a number of different films we would need to do. We can do some testing for it. If the windows didn't work ideally, there's always paint in the vestibule.
Yeah.
There's a number of ways we can do that. It's easy to do. We think color's the key, though.
It's
really no action on this. We were just wanting to make sure that we could go forward with this if that's fine with the trust.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you for your
Sir.
time. Thank you.
Let's move on. Next item on the agenda is Will Rogers World Airport. There are 10 items on our agenda today for Will Rogers World Airport. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull item E until we discuss the other 9, and then we'll discuss item E by itself at the conclusion of the Will Rogers World Airport part of our agenda. So, Mark, if you would.
Thanks. Under Will Rogers, A is to authorize the purchase of some roof repairs for the logistics support facility at Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center for $58,277 under the trust maintenance contract with Oklahoma Roofing and Sheet Metal. B is approving amendment number 1 to the contract with Connolly Paving. This is for the Southwest 64th Street replacement project at Mike Monroney, adding $7,957.50. Item C is authorizing the purchase of project representation services from Frankfurt Short Bruiser for $132,000 for roof replacement and building repairs for 3 roofs or 3 buildings at Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. D is approving the request for proposals for the Will Rogers World Airport crash phone system, proposals to be received on October the 7th. Moving to item F, approve the abrogation and hazard easement granted by First American Title for a tract of land near the intersection of Southwest 134th and May Avenue in South Oklahoma City, a little over 8 acres. Item G is approving the certificate of substantial completion and accepting the project for the Hangar 1 interior rehabilitation project with Homeco Construction Company. H is authorizing the purchase of services for the reinstallation of our fire suppression system. This was also related to the Hangar 1 clamshell canopy replacement project at AAR, $53,721.78 under the trust maintenance contract with Brewer Construction, Oklahoma. I is approving the amendment number 1 to the contract with Brewer Construction, Oklahoma for the field maintenance fire line that was added recently, adding $1,803.40, and accepting that project. J is approving change order 5 to the construction contract with Manhattan Construction Company for the new consolidated rental car facility, adding $84,565.67 in 22 calendar days. And item K, approving change order 1 to the construction contract with Terrace Global for the checked baggage inspection system project. This is our change order for this project that's been going on for several months, $29,675.54. Request approvals for all the items under Will Rogers with the exception of item E.
Thank you, Mark. What is the trustees' desires? We have a motion? We have a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. Now we come to item E. Unfortunately, last time at the time that you all were discussing this, I was checking out the signage of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport on city business going to an NLC meeting, so I was not able to be here. I understand we had a lack of a total of 3 votes needed to approve any item on the agenda. The vote was 2-1. So let's come back and readdress item E. So Mark, if you would present that item to us.
Absolutely. It's to approve addendum number 1 for the request for proposals for the management of the consolidated rental car facility bus operations and maintenance program for the trust associated with the new facility, and concurring with the Airport Staff Selection Committee's recommendation on the proposals received on March 25th. This action will authorize negotiation of a management contract with First Transit Incorporated.
Mark, if you would, how about giving us just a brief review of the process that we went through to get to this particular point?
Sure. We went out for a request for proposal process, which is very typical for the city and for the trust. We had 5 proposers propose on this project. There is a selection committee comprised of mainly comprised of some of my most senior executive members on the trust or in the department. We reviewed those 5 proposals, and we interviewed the top 3 that the committee felt would do the job the best. After that evaluation, there were 2 of them that stuck out that we wanted a little more information on, First Transit and Red Carpet, and we asked for those 2 companies to provide us actually more information, and we gave them 30 days to do so, and that information was brought forth and it was further evaluated, and eventually there was a recommendation to negotiate a contract with First Transit. The goal of this RFP was to determine the most capable and the most experienced company with regard to bus maintenance and with regard to operating consolidated rental car facility shuttle bus operations. And we felt that First Transit, which operates several large operations, consolidated rental car facilities throughout the country. They operate numerous bus systems throughout North America with the city, county, and state and other institutions. They also operate other parking shuttle operations at numerous airports across the country. So considering all of the factors that were in the proposal, which were weighted factors that were all given to the proposers at the very beginning of this process, everybody knew what they would be evaluated on, and I think the committee did a very good job evaluating this, vetting it, asking for more information, and then evaluating that, and eventually coming to a recommendation to me as the director. So that's the process we went through, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Before I entertain comments from anybody in the audience who would like to speak, let me open it up for the trustees. If any of the trustees have any questions or comments. Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak? And if you would like to speak, if you would, introduce yourself, give your name, address, and then address the trustees.
My name is Jerry Foshee, Foshee and Yaffe Law Firm. We represent Red Carpet Bus Line, and we're here to ask the trustees to either do one of two things: either send
Could
this
you
back.
give your address for the record, Jerry? Your address?
Yes, P.O. Box 890420. My street address is 2141 Crossgate Road's my home address. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
We're here to ask the trustees to do one of two things: either send this back for a request for proposals, or give it to Red Carpet. And the reason why we're asking that is because after looking and investigating the evaluations that is done here, they are inconsistent, invalid, and incorrect. And any reasonable, prudent man would look at this and it would raise an eyebrow. First of all, I handed you a packet. If you'll turn where it says the final results on proposal evaluations, if you'll look at those for just a second. 4 areas were they looked at and ranked. Under item A, it is proposers' financial manpower capability and resources to manage and operate bus transportation and maintenance service. So it's the financial manpower capability to operate a bus transportation and maintenance services. If you'll look, we received a 91 on that. First Transit received a 71. Now, that's an important element in this. Either they have the ability to maintain or financial manpower capability to do this, or they don't. A 71, 3 more points, they'd have had an unsatisfactory. That's inconsistent, the fact they're given the project. Go to number B, okay? Experience in operating a similar type of service, comparable small hub passenger airport. And here's the kicker on this. If you'll look, it says and or other major places of assembly. And that's important because Red Carpet, first of all, they do have a shuttle service. They do shuttle services everywhere. They shuttle our soldiers from Fort Sill all the way to the airport. The MBA, they shuttle all the MBA teams. They have extensive experience in that. The MBA is so competent of their services that they've asked them to move into the other cities to shuttle their MBA teams. Also, the CEO, Mr. O'Brien, they have combined experience of 50 years in shuttle services. Mr. O'Brien, who's the COO of Red Carpet, also handled the shuttle services for a little small airport called O'Hara, okay? So he's had plenty of experience in shuttle services. They were given no benefit, nothing whatsoever on this. They received on this one an 81, and First Transit received a 95. So I don't think they took in consideration the experience they had. I think if the NBA, they also shuttle people from our convention center to the various hotels. They're booked for the shuttle services there. Red Carpet has a 5-star rating, okay? And to say that they don't have experience in the shuttle service is a complete inaccuracy. Also, look at item E, capability to maintain satisfactory standards of employees' competency, conduct, appearance, training, and integrity. Now, you talk about ambiguous. I'm an attorney, and I'm used to dealing with ambiguous statements. But how the heck are you going to measure that? Even so, we received a 95, they received a 96. And even at one point is very significant because this whole thing was decided. There is 1 percentage point difference between Red Carpet and First Transit. 1 percentage point difference. It's a statistical tie. If you've taken statistics and I barely passed the course, anything that close is considered a tie. Yet they still took First Transit. Cost of proposed services to the trust, they have us at 180, and the First Transit at 190. Now, cost is cost. There shouldn't be this much difference. They have, one of the reviewers had a 37, 35, 36, 35, 39. We think we are the low bidder on this. Mr. Cranenberg, can you tell us if we were low bidder on this?
This wasn't a bid, Mr. Foshee.
I know, on our cost proposal, were we the low-cost proposer?
Cost was one of the factors. I think it was very close. It was just a few dollars.
Were we low? I'm just asking.
I don't know. You may have been low by a few dollars on the cost itself. I know originally you were $300,000 or $400,000 higher when we went out for the 30 days. You reduced your cost at that point.
And if we're lower, it certainly makes up, as you say here, 40% of the total evaluation, correct? So if we're lower, we were 40%, then we should have been given 40% evaluation above First Transit.
I'll just ask you to continue.
Okay, all right. Well, these are questions we've asked, and we haven't got answers. That's why I'm asking you. All of these are inconsistent. Every one of these are inconsistent. For example, my First Transit's parent company is based in the UK. First Transit's U.S. operations is headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. Red Carpet's charters is Oklahoma City-based, owned, and operated. Red Carpet has been in business for 29 years. First Transit's first U.S. operation started in 2003. Red Carpet's existing facilities is 2.2 miles from your rental car center. It's already built. First Transit doesn't even have a facility in this area. And I've checked the Metroplex listings, and I know Mr. Humphreys is very knowledgeable of commercial property. They're going to be hard-pressed to find anything within 10 to 15 miles that can handle this bus service. And they're going to have to build one at that. We're already here and building. Now, Red Carpets, typically on the proposals, minor discrepancies are generally resolved during contract negotiations. And for that to be that close where you got 1 percentage point separating us, it doesn't make that could be worked out. I guess, it's very difficult to explain to people in the Oklahoma City area when the valuations are nearly identical. A locally owned and operated business that pays taxes, generates sales tax revenue, supports a local community, back all the MAPS projects would not be recommended. And some of the terms on your evaluations, Mr. Cranberg, you put out, and it's in the memorandum to the trust. And if you turn, I gave you a copy of it, if you turn to the second page, the last 3 lines are 4 lines before the recommendation. You said, talking about First Transit, they provide in-house maintenance for their operations. First Transit is accustomed to readying a facility for shuttle bus maintenance operations in a short amount of time. that infers that red carpet isn't, and they do. They're condensed natural gas ready in their facility. They invited the Airport Trust to come out and view their facility that's here. The Airport Trust did, and they said it would give the other side a disadvantage. Well, yeah, I guess it would, because we're already here, and they should have been given some points for being a locally owned company. My clients met with Mr. Cranenberg and asked him about that comment. What does he mean by that comment? Is he inferring that we don't maintain our own bus lines of 29 years, that we don't have the capability of maintaining them? And he had no explanation for that. What did you mean by that statement? Why did you put that in there?
Go ahead and continue, and I'll respond after you finish.
Well, I kind of like to have you answer it so I can respond after you answer it if I'm going to be given that opportunity.
You'll have an opportunity to respond to the answers as we go along, Jerry.
Okay. All right. You know, the bottom line on this thing is, you know, every one of these evaluations, let me show you how random these evaluations are. Look at reviewer number 2 on our evaluation. Reviewer number 2. Look at it. Reviewer number 2. Now, boy, he really thought long and hard about this in-depth vetting, didn't he? He automatically reduced us by 5 on every one. We got 5 less than that. 5. It's 15, 15, 15, and 35. Now, that's really in-depth vetting. He really thought long and hard about these evaluations. If I was in court right now, I'd say, this is ridiculous. He didn't look at this. He didn't vet it. And if this is what, Mr. Cranberg, if you consider this a great job of your staff, one question was asked last time I was here by one of the trustees, you got to respect the process. I do respect the process when it's done correctly, but this would be like if you hire an accountant and he's got the wrong figures. Hiring an accountant's the right process, but he's got invalid figures, then you don't respect what the accountant has turned out, and you certainly wouldn't file your income tax based on incorrect figures. All these are inconsistent one with the other, and particularly A. Either you have the financial manpower or you don't have the financial manpower, but then you turn around and request it. I also have Mr. Poseen here. If y'all have any questions to him, he'd love to answer them. All we're saying is send it back, have it properly vetted, have it properly reviewed, and if we're that close, it's a tie. And I still don't know why this trust would turn their backs on local people who are paying taxes, who live here, already got a facility built when it's that close. If we were 10 or 15 points, even with this poor vetting, that's one thing. But when you're tied and you still give it to an out-of-state company who's in a UK company who's in Cincinnati, Ohio, if you had any problems with red carpet, you go 2.2 miles and they can solve those problems. They've been in business 29 years, guys. They know the busing system. So I'm just telling you right up front that you're doing a disservice to your neighbors if you okay this. And the trustees have an obligation to make sure that there's an equity situation, an equitable situation, that all people are treated fairly. We feel like this hasn't been properly vetted. We're asking you to reconsider it or have red carpet or award it to red carpet, because basically it is a tie. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Do the trustees have any questions at this particular time?
I'd like some clarification on the issue of cost. What was the evaluation on that? Because what I've heard is that red carpet might have been low in the first year, but not low overall. So do we have any clarification on that?
The year one cost for red carpet after their adjustment was $1,360,529. Their first proposal was over $1.6 million. So when we asked for the 30 days extra, they somehow were able to sharpen their pencil. So again, 1.360. The first transit year one cost was $1,361,974. So again, it's almost less than $1,000 difference between the two. This is not a bid. It's not based on low cost. It is the overall best capable and experienced firm that can do this job. Now, with regard to Mr. Foshi's paragraph that he referred to me, and I told him I'd owe him a response, that is my memo to the trust just explaining what First Transit's experience and what their capabilities are. It is true that they do provide in-house maintenance, and it is true that they customarily go into markets and ready a facility when they are awarded a contract.
Well, didn't Red Carpet?
Pardon me?
Red Carpet also does, doesn't it?
Yes, but,
Okay.
but this is a recommendation for First Transit, not Red Carpet.
Jerry,
I'll sit down because I'm not going
Jerry,
to... Yes.
let us handle this up here, and then
Okay,
you'll have
you
a
bet.
chance
I'm
to
sorry,
speak,
Larry.
okay?
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
That's it. I think my opening comments were, we're looking for a company that has the best capability and experience to run a consolidated rental car bus operations and has demonstrated bus maintenance. First Transit demonstrated to the committee, and the committee told me that they actually had a lot of experience with the buses that we're actually going to be buying. Now, that's not completely the only factor we look at, but it's nice to know that. And they have operations all over the country. Their experience in CNG is massive. I know that Red Carpet has a CNG facility that is CNG capable, but they don't have any experience at this time in CNG. I was told you're going to sub out the CNG to Southern Plains, is what the committee told me. So you're not doing it in-house, at least not right away, is what I was told. So there is an issue, but the main thing that I want to stress, gentlemen, is that we are interested in selecting a company that has demonstrated experience in consolidated rental car operations. First Transit runs Houston, Las Vegas McCarran, Kansas City, Chicago Midway, and has other shuttle parking operations at other airports across the country. Red Carpet does a very good business running a niche bus charter service, and that's what you guys are really, really good at. But you don't run any consolidated rental car facilities, and that comes out in this evaluation.
Can I respond?
Just a minute, Jerry. Kirk, anything further?
Well, I'll just comment that we have a long history in the city of evaluating proposals through an evaluation panel like this. And when I got elected mayor, ironically, it was the Airport Trust that had a recommendation from a committee for the selection of the architect for the terminal expansion. It was a big job, over $100 million job. And the trust did not go with the panel's recommendation. It was split on a 2-to-1 vote, and the swing trustee was the bank trustee, Ken Townsend. And of course, the firm, Benham, who had been selected number one by the evaluation committee, came to the new mayor crying foul. And I dug into it, and what we really had was an airport trustee, the independent, well, the council trustee, who really had a good relationship with another firm and felt more comfortable doing that, and so he swung the independent trustee's vote. It was 2-to-1. The city manager, Glenn Deck, voted against that. He voted for the panel's recommendation. Well, as the new mayor, I prevailed on Ken Townsend to bring it back up and change his vote. Because I think of course these are subjective evaluations. By their very nature, it's very difficult. And Jerry, we all know Red Carpet. We know you. We have great appreciation for everyone involved here. They are subjective. But we have great staff in our city that I don't think these are casual observations. I think they're putting down their best recommendation, and to them it's a matter of integrity. And so since that time, when I came back to this trust and got this trust to reconsider that and wound up going with the firm that the panel recommended as number one, I'm not aware, maybe it's happened, I'm not aware in the city of any time that we've gone through an evaluation panel and then the board or trust has gone against that. Perhaps it's happened. I'm not aware if it has. So I think we have a good process, and there are winners and losers, and yes, it is subjective. But anything like this is going to be subjective. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support the panel's recommendation, and I think for good reason.
Mr. Mackey, can I respond very quickly?
Not quite yet, if you
Okay.
care. Dave?
I would like to say, or just carry on with Mr. Humphrey's comments, that I do think we have perhaps a responsibility is the term I'm looking for, to honor the recommendations of the committee. They are the ones who discuss this, share information back and forth, and we have no way of knowing what was said, why a certain person voted the way they did, and to come in and second guess it, I just don't think that's a fair process on our part unless we knew that there was something that was not taken into consideration that the entire committee may not have been aware of, or something along those lines. So my leaning is towards respecting and adopting their recommendations. I do have two questions, if I may, and I am interested in this. One, can you tell me the number of certified CNG repair technicians that Red Carpet currently has on staff?
Presently, they have 4 mechanics here in Oklahoma City that can work on CNG.
Well, does that mean they're certified CNG repair
Yes, the shop
technicians?
is CNG capable, and these mechanics can work on those facilities.
Okay, but specifically, they are certified as CNG repair technicians.
He said, basically, there is no real certification. You can, to be certified as a CNG technician, they are capable of working on CNG, and they have worked on CNG vehicles in the past. So there's been no past history where that is where they hadn't been able to do that. They have the ability to maintain CNG, if that's your question.
Well, the reason why I bring that up, sitting on COPTA's board, we are introducing and continuing to expand the number of CNG buses that the city operates, and it is certainly a challenge to identify and retain. My understanding, there is a certification process that these repair technicians go through that we look at.
There is a minor test. You fill out paperwork. They qualify to be CNG certified because of their past experience of working on CNG.
Okay. My next question is, as was brought out in the discussion today, what led to the reduction in estimated costs from the initial submission to the revised submission that took place 30 days later?
This is Jeff Poseen. He is the CEO of Red Carpet. Why don't you can go ahead and talk. Give him your address, please.
Jeff Polzine, I'm the owner and CEO of Red Carpet Charters, 11504 Court Avenue, Oklahoma City. We complied with the RFP in our initial cost estimate, and we did the cost estimate based on what the RFP requested, which was 6 buses in continuous service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was not based on the service we think we will need to provide. We, in the second additional request for information, we on our own, it was not in the request, decided that we would do an estimate based on what we thought would actually be required to provide this service. In other words, it's not going to take 6 buses in continuous service at 3 o'clock in the morning in this service. We used what we think, and nobody knows at this point, nobody knows what the demand is going to be and what hours it will be. It's something that has to be learned. But we went back and did a cost estimate based on what we estimate will be the actual demand for service. Now, the original RFP ask you to do a cost estimate based on a certain number of buses, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's the difference in the 2 cost estimates. The second one we turned in, it wasn't requested, we just did it on our own. It was basically what we think will be the true first-year cost. And also, in our proposal, we did not say we were outsourcing CNG maintenance. I don't know where they got that idea. That was not in the information we provided to the airport.
They've never outsourced.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment on Councilman Greenwell's question about CNG certification. I just Googled it, but Oklahoma City Community College offers a course for CNG certification. It's a state certified program. It's a 4-day course, and at the conclusion of a 4-day course, they can take the exam. So there is a certification. It's offered across the street from the airport.
There is a certification. We are qualified. All we have to do, because the certification is the CNG is a relatively new thing.
Well, but the point is, Jerry, his question is, how many do you have?
We have 5 mechanics that can be, well, all they have to do is take the test, but they're qualified. They've worked on them for 29 years.
Very good. I think...
Okay,
David,
still like to comment on one thing. Anything else?
Anything?
No, my process and thoughts on this is just basically, unless there was some impropriety or something like that, it would indicate that changing from one to the other would say that there was something wrong or that the reviewers themselves did something wrong. And I haven't heard anything like that. So I concur with continuing.
Let's give Mr. Foshee a chance now to...
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is, so basically, we were the lowest cost of proposal, which is supposed to make up 40% of this original proposal. And yet, if you look, which goes again to show how contradictory they are, even though we're the lowest, First Transit gets 40, 40, 40, 40 on theirs. We get 37, 35, 36, 35, 39. That's inconsistent with us being the lowest proposer for cost. And, I mean, you've got to look at your evaluations, and if you guys don't see inconsistencies there, I guess I'm not a very good lawyer, because they're there. But anyway, I still think it's the process has to be looked at as much as the reviewers. When you have one reviewer on everyone just reduces it by 5, it tells me there wasn't a whole lot of thought put into that evaluation.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak?
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Brown. I'm a Director of Business Development for First Transit. Address correct? 7628 Brisk Ocean Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89178. I want to thank the trustees for having us today, but I think one of the key components that I want to focus on is not on the scoring, but to chime on to what Mark has said about the process and the capabilities. I've worked for First Transit since 2002. Prior to that, I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for 6 years, including running the rental-car transportation and location here at Oklahoma City Airport. So I've been here and I understand this airport and I understand your needs. But since 2002, I've been involved with the development of rental-car shuttles from our organization, starting with Houston, from ground up. And we have taken an approach over the past 12 years in developing a transportation system that isn't just putting people on a bus and taking them off. It's creating an experience that intersects with the expectations of the rental car companies and their passengers' overall satisfaction with the company that they rent with. Because once you create a consolidated center, you become a part of their business from the airport to the facility, through the rental process, and all the way back to the airport. Not only that, you become the very first and the very last impression that people have of Oklahoma City or Houston, Las Vegas, or anywhere else we operate. And to chime on to what Mr. Foshee said, we gave you the price, and we gave you the plan that was required up front. There was no batho on our part. We gave you the price. We told you what you needed. We even laid out how many hours of service we thought this would require. We've done this at every airport. We take our expertise and our customer service plans. Our customer service at McCarran Airport, as an easy example, which I used to run, the airport's website got about 3 to 4 website comments a year. Mostly positive, sometimes negative. But out of 6 million people, that's an astonishing number. I had stacks of comment cards from the high quality of service that people received. We got far more compliments than we did complaints. And to chime on to Mr. Greenwell, you have to be licensed in this state to work on CNG. We have mechanics that are currently in Oklahoma City now who are doing maintenance for your trash trucks, which are CNG. And we've been doing that for several years now through First Vehicle Services. Our company was founded in 1955, and it was American Transit Enterprises. It wasn't founded in 2000. We've had a lot of reiterations over the years, just like many companies do. First PLC, which is a UK-based organization, acquired us around 1998 from Ryder Transportation Services. And from that point, we have acquired Coach USA's transportation services, as well as Laidlaw, and we're very well known for owning Greyhound. We have a lot of experience nationally in all types of transportation, but rental car shuttles themselves are extremely unique in and of themselves. Even if I were to take you to a parking shuttle that we operate, rental cars are very different in the expectations of the passengers, the industry, and the stakeholders. But ensuring that you have a high quality of service is what we're here to deliver for you. And I'm here just to thank you for the opportunity, and we can assure you that this will be a top-performing transportation system, that the investment in your capital and your buses will ensure that the life cycle of those buses is met and your assets are protected in the long term. And with that, I thank you,
sir. Any questions?
One more, please. I don't mean to drag this out, but may I ask the representative from First Transit, as you mentioned in your comments just a moment ago, when you prepared your estimated cost of services, unlike the initial estimate prepared by Red Carpet, who looked at apparently what was identified in the request for proposal, 24 hours a day, 6 buses, continuous operation. Did you base your estimate upon that, or did you, like Red Carpet did on their second or updated estimate, look at what you anticipate the actual usage required will be?
My memory's a little scratchy, but I believe that when we prepared this, we made our recommendations that this is the level of service that we feel like will be required for this service. And we did that up front. It's not the first time I've heard that. In Las Vegas, we were significantly under the next bidder there too. But we proposed what we believe is correct because we don't want to waste anyone's money. We want to give you the best price up front, and we want to be a good partner in helping people reduce the cost in the long term while not sacrificing the customer experience, which is critical because the high quality has to be balanced with cost efficiency and maintenance and reliability.
Thank you, sir.
May I ask
Right ahead.
clarification, Mark? Is this proposal, is it a turnkey situation where they bear the burden of how much cost it'll be to provide these services, or is it based upon they bill us for their time and costs?
It'll be a management contract that we'll negotiate, and I want to make a point to the cost. that is subjective. That's a first shot. When we get into the negotiations and we get into the actual operation of the facility, that will vary, I'm sure. However, this is a management contract where we will be billed for the services. So the cost is a factor, but it is still, in my opinion, a subjective factor that we have to look at. And it's not the overriding factor. Again, this is not a bid. This is a proposal. And one of the key criteria of this proposal was to have capability of bump and run operations in the proposal. And I know that First Transit does that with these other rental car companies or the operations. First Transit or Red Carpet, I don't know that they have bump and run operations, but I have no question at all that the committee vetted all of these aspects thoroughly. It took weeks, if not months, to go through all of this material.
And I'm sorry again not to drag this out, but what's the length of this contract that we'll be entering into?
And this is a 5-year contract, 3 with 2 one-year renewals. Yes, 3-year with 2 one-year renewals.
Okay. Final comment, and thank you for your comments. You can be seated. As it relates to requesting or submitting responses to proposals and bids, our firm does that on a regular basis. Unfortunately, or fortunately sometimes, we only are successful in maybe 2 out of 10 on a monthly basis. So it's a process that we look to when we're not successful is how can we gain and better ourselves to prepare better for the next opportunity that comes along. So, and unfortunately, we deal with bias all the time. For example, we're a locally owned CPA firm. At times, there's a bias of using larger national accounting firms. We understand that, we accept that, and we just try to do better the next opportunity that comes along. Thank you.
Did you have one final comment?
I'd add one more comment. I apologize. Page C4, Section 4, Bus Routing and Scheduling, it actually says contractor shall have the responsibility to determine peak hours based on the demand of passenger traffic to appropriately schedule the buses to meet this demand. There was no specific requirement that you had to have a certain.
That will relate to eventual cost.
Thank you.
Any other comments from trustees before I ask a question? Seeing none, the action that we're taking today, Mark, should the trustees decide to accept the recommendation, that empowers you to commence negotiations with First Transit.
Yes, sir.
Will the trust see the contract that's negotiated or not after?
Absolutely. We'll bring the contract back after it's negotiated for the trust approval.
So we'll have another look at this when that's done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Is there a second? Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is approved. Thank you all. Moving on, Mark.
Under general, item A is to receive the delinquent accounts receivable report, construction project status, and budget to actual report. B is adopting the resolution purchasing new computers from Dell Marketing utilizing a state contract not to exceed $80,000. That's all items under general.
Move approval.
Your motion is second. Any questions? Cast your votes. So approved. Next on our agenda.
Lease agreements are an assumption, use, and guarantee for the sale of a T-hanger unit at Wiley Post from John Lepre to TL Aviation. Yes.
And Mark, excuse me, in the interest of time, do we need all these read, or?
I can risk approval of the slate. You've seen these.
I move approval of item 7.
Second.
Question, can we do that legally?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is so done.
Request approval of the requisitions.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. We get to the last. Last on our agenda is what? Now, comments from trustees. Any comments from trustees? All right, seeing none. Any comments from staff? Any comments from the citizens? Thank you all for your patience. We are adjourned.